There we go. Yep. All right, so I think we're live now.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for jumping on online. Great to have obviously a lot of interest in this afternoon's webinar, and for good reason, as the Route Optimisation Tool is a terrific product. My name's Addy Wetzler. I am the Executive Director of the Rottnest Channel Swim Association, and it started sort of mid to late last year. So very excited this week coming into my first Rottnest Channel Swim. I'm just going to kick off with a couple of things, and then I'll hand over to the experts who we have on the call. I guess firstly, just to acknowledge that we are on Whadjuk Noongar Boodja and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I won't do a full intro and bio, but we've obviously got Scott, Terry, and Vitsa on the call, who have been involved for years in a collaborative effort between UWA and Aurora Offshore Engineering to build and test and optimize this product, which is obviously pretty unique to this event, and has been developed right here in WA with some great WA talent. I will just touch very quickly. Obviously, a lot of discussion, a lot of consideration around the weather at the moment. We're getting our fair share of queries across all platforms, and we obviously understand why there's a lot of interest in the weather forecast ahead of Saturday. We're certainly keeping a close eye on it and continue to monitor it, and we are in ongoing communication with the Bureau. I guess while the weather is obviously a key factor, and it's relevant to a degree to what we're here to talk about today. I guess we'd probably ask that the focus in your questions, which we would certainly welcome, are about the tool and are focused on the route optimization tool. Questions, comments, suggestions around the weather at the end of the day will just sort of be a distraction from what we're looking to talk about here. We hopefully you've all received an email update as participants with where we stand, and we'll provide a further update tomorrow. Effectively, we do have pretty clearly defined weather protocols that form part of our risk management plan, and it's a risk management plan that evolves every year and has significant input from emergency services and other key stakeholders. So it's a really robust document. It's a rigorous process that we go through. So while I appreciate that everyone has concerns and suggestions, ultimately we will follow the guidelines, and we'll make a decision in line with those. That decision will be made no later than 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, and communication will go out by SMS to all participants no later than 4:30 on Saturday morning. So, as I said, we'll provide an update by email to all participants. It will be updated on our website tomorrow as well. And as I said, I'd just ask that we keep the focus on the incredible route optimization tool. And with that, I'll hand over to Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Addy. So yeah, I'm here today with Terry Griffiths and also Ivica Jankovic. And we're sort of from UWA and from Aurora Offshore Engineering. So we're going to go through some slides today, starting off talking about the current forecast model that we use, which is an oceanographic model. And then afterwards, we'll introduce the Route Optimization app, a little bit about how it works and how to use it. And then we'll finish off by talking about some interesting things that the app will tell you if you play around with it, which may be of interest and use to you planning for your swim. We will very happy to take questions, so we'll probably take questions at the end. So there's a Q&A button that you can use to write a question in, You can also write in the chat and we'll just sort of monitor them both. Probably try and use the Q&A if you can, but we'll also check the chat towards the end. I might just get going, Terry and Ivica, and I'll pass to you as we go through. I'll share my screen now. Okay, so hopefully you can see the slideshow. Yeah, cool. All right, so okay, so very first thing, so the route optimization model, for us to be able to do calculations to work out the optimum route, we have to have a really good prediction of what the surface currents will be. And we do that, in fact, Ivica does that for us by running a numerical model that simulates the ocean movement subject to forcing from the ocean and also from the wind above. So simulating ocean movement's not easy. The ocean's obviously quite turbulent, a lot of fine scale motion, very chaotic in nature. It's a very, for those that know about mathematics, I guess, it's a nonlinear system. So it sort of suffers from this butterfly effect you may be aware of. That means that we have to use very sophisticated solution methods to simulate and forecast the ocean movement. And that means we use supercomputers. The particular model that we have used to sort of underpin this route optimization method, we use a global model to provide information at the OB, which is the open boundaries. We then use a model for the whole WA coast, which has a better resolution, a 2K resolution. And then inside that, we nest an additional Perth model, which has quite fine 500-meter resolution. The model captures the ocean dynamics and also captures the atmosphere effects. And we use essentially forecast wind conditions and forecast global ocean boundary conditions to allow us to determine a forecast high resolution surface current prediction around Rottnest. So to give you a quick idea, this is what the global model looks like. Quite a coarse resolution. Each of these squares is just a single current value. We then refine that with the regional model here, which has a much better resolution, still a little bit blocky. And then we nest in there a 500-meter resolution model. And this is the model we use to give us our forecasts. The model provides forecasts continuously in time for race day. So we allow for the fact that the currents evolve over the duration of the race. So if you're interested in those currents, there is a link, and I'll show you actually, if you just go to the Rottnest Channel Swim website, and you click on pre-event, you can come down here to Route Optimisation Tool, and you can link to access the optimization tool. But you can also just link to the ocean current forecast directly. So if we click on this one, it takes you to this geophysical fluid dynamics page. And this in itself is quite useful. So this has a number of features on it, which I'll just run through. The most important one, I guess, is the date. So we're interested in the 21st of February. And then there's a whole bunch of different metrics that you can look at. So if we're interested in wind, this is showing us the wind. And up the top here, we can choose different times during the day. So these are all in Western Standard Time. So this would be 5 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and so forth. So you can sort of see here the winds are predominantly from the south on that day, and you can get a feel for the wind speed in meters per second using the color scale on the right hand side. And then the surface currents is what we use in our model. And you can see here we've got predictions of the surface currents The colour here indicates the magnitude of the current, and the arrows indicate the direction. So what we can see here is at 5 a.m. the currents are about 0.6, a bit over 0.6 meters per second, and predominantly in the northerly direction. And throughout the day, you can see that the current's direction doesn't change a lot, but the current magnitude does change throughout the course of the day. So you can come on here and look at it. Every day, a new calculation is done. So this result for the 21st will change from now tomorrow morning. So if you come on sort of mid-morning tomorrow, it'll be slightly different than what it is now. And again, if you come on a mid-morning on Friday, it'll be slightly different again. We'll get to it a bit later, but we'd recommend that you use the forecast on Friday for race day. The forecast on Friday is the best forecast that we will produce because it's the closest to race day. Okay, so that's the background to the oceanographic model that forecasts the currents. I'm happy to answer questions on that during the question time. So the swim route optimization, we'll just talk through a couple of things. This is what it looks like, and we'll go through an example calculation in a minute. So it's just a web app, and you come in and you insert different things into these fields, and then you can calculate your optimum route. We'll just talk through really quickly today why the optimum route to Rottnest is not straightforward, why you would take a diverted route. We'll talk about how you find and use the web app, and then I'll pass to Terry. He's going to talk through some interesting things you can explore with the web app. Okay, so why is the optimum route to Rottnest not straightforward? I think many of you probably have an intuition for this already, but if not, this is an example of the 2021 race day, and these were the forecast currents. And in this case here, we've got 2 knots indicated. The yellow here is relative to the magnitude. I don't have the color bar shown, but I think from memory, this is quite close to a meter per second or so, these currents. So imagine if you're swimming from Cottesloe over here at point A, and you're looking to finish at Rottnest point B. You could follow the run line, and if you did that, by the time you get to sort of say 14 Ks, the local current is predominantly going towards the north. If you want to hold the run line and swim directly towards point B, you can't swim towards point B directly. You actually have to swim in this direction so that the addition of the current and your swimming speed propel you forwards along the run line. So what that means is, although, and the length of these arrows relate to how quick you're swimming, although you might be swimming quite quickly, the length of the blue arrow is quite long, you're having to fight the current, and so your net forward speed is a lot smaller. And so you're actually not traveling very quickly along the run line because you're trying to hold your position on the run line. Alternatively, if you swam and you went further south, by the time you got to 14 Ks, you're still experiencing the same currents, but now you're not wanting to go horizontal or towards the west. So your swim will be in this direction, and your overall resultant is coming back towards B. Essentially, you can let the currents drift you upwards, northwards, and you don't have to swim against the current as much. And so you can make better headway towards Rottnest Island. So that's one way you can look at this route optimization, is why you would go south. So if you were to run like an algorithm and you were to say, okay, I'm going to take an infinite number of paths from A to B, and I'm going to work out how long it would take to travel them, this red line would turn out to be the optimum path for somebody that swims about 15 minutes per kilometre on average. So quite a fast swimmer. That would be their optimum route. They would go a little bit south of the run line so they can make use of these northerly currents to bring them back towards the run line as they get close to Rottnest. If you did the same thing for a swimmer that's a little bit slower, averaging 23 minutes per K, they would also get an optimum route, but it would be a bit different. And you can understand that because if you're a slower swimmer, the currents are going to have a bigger effect on how you move through the water. And so you're going to have to choose a route more carefully to control that effect. If you were a really fast swimmer, the currents would be almost inconsequential and you'd go essentially along the run line anyway. Terry will show you a figure a bit later, which demonstrates that really nicely. So the optimum routes are like this. How useful is the optimum route? Well, in 2021, if you were to not do the optimum route and just swim directly along the run line, then that fast swimmer, the 15 minutes per K swimmer, would take about 5 hours and 12 minutes. So only 3 minutes slower than what you would do with the optimum route. The 23-minute per K swimmer, though, if they just swam along the run line, they would take 9 hours and 36 minutes, which is 55 minutes slower than the optimum route. So you can see how this route optimization has an increasingly important effect on swimmers that swim more slowly. So you've got to be a really fast swimmer for the route optimization to not have a big advantage. Having said that, I think these times we think are still important. So if you were this quick swimmer and you could go 3 minutes quicker, yeah, that could be the difference between you getting in the top 50 or not on race day, which can be helpful. And for the slower swimmer, you know, if you look at the finishing times from a previous Rottnest swim, when you start getting out to 9 hours or so, you're getting close to the point where people can't finish. So it could be the difference between successfully crossing or not, if you're a slightly slower swimmer. Obviously,
and just to point out the fact that a couple of years ago, the difference between first and second was less than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And so definitely it has the potential, even if you're highly competitive, to make a difference on placing, even if it's not necessarily big differences in time.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we'll have a look at how to use the app. So to find the app, you can go back to that Rottnest Channel Swim website. So if I just do that again, you go into pre-event and come down to Route Optimisation Tool. And now, rather than look at the ocean currents, we're going to access the Route Optimisation Tool itself. So if we click on that, it will take you through to this website. This website has a bunch of information useful to read at the top here. It just gives you a bit of background. And the red text here is quite important. As of 9 a.m. this morning, it was possible to compute an optimum route using forecast currents for this year. We'll update the background currents each day. And so we would recommend that you would use this route optimization on Friday, say around lunchtime, to come in and get your final route. We won't do another update of the forecast currents after lunchtime on Friday. So if you just come in on Friday, that's when we recommend you get your final route for race day. So to use this tool is quite straightforward. So if I have a go at using it, I can just put in my name or my team name. I can put in my number. So put in sort of 23 here for an example. If you would like to leave your email address, then please do. We often will contact people afterwards who have left their email address, and we might ask them for some feedback on how the route optimization tool went, so we can continue to improve it in future years. If you don't want to leave your email address, that's fine. The next thing here is to choose your start time. So depending on what wave you're in, so if you're in solo wave B, I think it is, the second of the whitecap waves, I think that starts at 6 a.m. So you would just put 6 in the hours here and leave the minutes at 0. So this would be a 6 a.m. start. And then you have the ability to choose what year you would like. So you want to be choosing 2026 for this year. Make sure you hit 2026. If you don't, then you'll be forecasting a route based on a previous year's conditions. The reason we have these earlier years is for you to have a play around. You can sort of see from year to year how much the weather influences your swimming crossing time, and you'll find that there can be quite a big difference from year to year, depending on the currents. So I'll keep sort of 2026 chosen for now. Then you need to choose your initial pace. So Terry's going to talk to you a bit more about this input and the next input. I'll just say for now, the initial impact pace that you want to put in would be how fast you think you would set off at from Cottesloe, and how you're relative to how quick you're ignoring the effect of currents. So if you were to set off from Rottnest in still water, what sort of pace do you think you'd be going at? So I'm going to put in here sort of 18 minutes per kilometre as the pace might set off from at Cottesloe. We then ask for you to give an estimate of what your pace is going to be at halfway. And we have this in there because we know that people will slow down typically throughout the swim. And that's important in the routing. So if you're slowing down as you get closer to Rottnest, we need to account for that because that's when the currents are at their strongest. So Terry's going to give you a few pointers on how you might choose this pace at 10 Ks in a couple of minutes' time. At the moment, I'm going to assume that I can hold pace. Maybe I'm putting in a prediction for a team, and maybe the team thinks that they can hold their pace relatively consistent throughout. Or maybe I'm a solo swimmer that's pretty good at pacing, so I can hold my pace throughout. The last thing here is then feeding, and feeding is really important because that obviously everyone needs to feed, but it also influences your average speed. So we've got here a feeding interval. So maybe you are going to choose to feed every 30 minutes. And we've got a feeding duration in seconds. So maybe you can take your feed in 30 seconds, for example. And so once you've done that, you've put all of your inputs in, you can then just hit on calculate route. Before you hit calculate route, you can have a look and see the race map, but you want to hit calculate route before you scroll down too much. So hit calculate route. It's a little rotation icon here, and then after a little while, it'll complete and it will jump down and show you your optimum route. Okay, so this is now what's been computed. We can see here that the optimum route that's being predicted is almost completely on the southern boundary of the swimming channel. The route optimization has been written so that you should never get an optimum route that goes outside of the southern or the northern boundary buoys. This particular year, 2026, there's quite a strong current predicted towards the north. So most of the optimum routes are going to hug this southern boundary very closely. This little cartoon here is showing you the blue is indicating your track across to Rottnest, and the black arrows here are indicating the direction and the magnitude of the current that you'll experience at these locations. So, for example, at this location around the midpoint, there's going to be a current going north-northwest. And you can see here the length of the arrow, you can compare it to the length of this arrow. This arrow is 0.5 meter per second. So you can see we're going to be going about 0.5 meter per second. The current's going to be going 0.5 meter per second towards the north-northwest direction. As you get closer to Rottnest, you can see those currents are getting a lot larger, closer to sort of 1 meter per second. What you then get, if you scroll down, you can see a table, and the table gives you distance in kilometres along towards Rottnest, and it gives you in clock time what the predicted time will be when you arrive at those different distances across the channel. We've found this to be a really important and useful output. It gives you a good feeling for how long it's going to take you to get across. And like I said before, from year to year, your predicted crossing time can vary quite a lot. So it's quite useful to know, at halfway, in this case, it's going to take you about 3 hours and 20 minutes. It's quite good to know that beforehand. So when you get to halfway and your paddler says, you've been going for 3.5 hours, okay, it's pretty much similar to what I was expecting. So mentally that can be helpful. It tells you here the distance you'll be from the run line, with negative values being towards the south. So you can see here we get all the way down to 1.5 Ks south when we're at the 11 K point. So we're right on the southern boundary at that point there. There's some information icons here if you want to get a bit more information about telling you that negative values are south. And then this red one here just tells you the time elapsed since you started swimming. So the total swim here for this person would take 7 hours and 23 minutes. That's the forecast time, the predicted time if they follow the optimum route. There's a few statistics down the bottom. If you didn't take the optimum route in this particular year, it would take you a lot longer. It would take you over 9 hours. And that's because the currents this year are predicted to be quite strong. It also gives you an idea of how far it will feel like you've swum if you keep on the run line. That's a pretty interesting metric and also useful because you're battling the current. You're not actually, it'll feel like you've swum further than just the 19.7 Ks. So here, if you go the run line, it will feel like you've actually swum 30 Ks to get from Cottesloe to Rottnest. If you take the optimum route, it will feel like you've swum 24 Ks. The last thing to mention is there's a couple of outputs here. So you can generate a PDF output, and that'll just create a PDF that you can load. And the PDF looks like this. So it's telling you the year that you've chosen. Just check that you've got the right input year and you'll get the right output on this PDF. It's giving you a race number and your name. And then what's given here is it's kilometre locations along the run line. And then it's giving you the latitude and longitude here in decimal values of your optimum route. And here giving you in latitude and longitude, but in the format of degrees, minutes, and seconds. You can use this to input your optimum route manually into a number of navigation aids if you'd like to. And we give you both formats because different navigation devices might use different format for entry manually. The other thing you can get is you can get a GPX file. So you can download a GPX file. You'll just click on that and that'll give you a GPX file here. You can then copy that GPX file into the Roto Swim app. And there's some information on how to do that, some instructions on how to do that on the Rottnest Channel Swim website. You can also use this GPX file and put it into any navigation device. For example, any Garmin device, you can just copy this GPX file and the Garmin device should read it directly. So yeah, I'd encourage you to have a go at that. And you can have a go now at trying to load your GPX file just to make sure you know how to do that. If you've got any questions on that, you can contact us here at this website. We won't be able to help you with all devices because we haven't used all devices, but we can give you a little bit of help if you're having trouble or if you've got any comments or suggestions on the web route optimization more generally. We're happy to get back to you. There's one last thing I wanted to show you, then I'll finish talking. If you're not fast enough, so for example, if we were only doing 22 minutes per K, and I just can recalculate the route. So it should probably take a couple more seconds. What happens now is I just get a bunch of zeros pop up and I get this red text saying the input swimming speed is not fast enough, or the feeding breaks are too long for a route to be calculated. So in the route optimization algorithm, so you can imagine if you put a swimming speed in that's really slow, there's no chance you'll make it to Rottnest Island before the race cutoff time. And if that's the case, then the app will return this message telling you that a successful route essentially can't be found. Now, conditions forecast for this week, for Saturday, the currents are very strong. So it's quite likely if you put in a swimming speed that's not fast enough, you might get this message back. So I just wanted to let you know about this before you go off and try. If you can swim faster or if your feeding intervals will increase or your feeding duration decreases, then you'll find the route will become possible again. So you can play around with that, but just be wary. You might get this reading back because the conditions forecast for Saturday are what they are. Okay, so on that note, we'll jump back to the presentation to look at some things you can explore with the web app. And Terry, I'll pass to you now if you're happy to go, and I can click the slides for you if you want.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much, Scott. And just checking, you can hear me okay? Yeah, beautiful. All right. Thanks everyone for joining in and being a part of the Rottnest Channel Swim experience. It's certainly a fantastic one. And between us, Scott and I have done quite a few crossings in various conditions. I was one of the swimmers that was involved in 2024 who didn't get to finish. So I've certainly dealt with some really tough conditions as part of Rottnest crossings. So bearing that in mind, what I just wanted to talk through were some of the things that you can play around with the Route Optimisation app and how they relate to your strategy going into the swim on Saturday. So for the time being, I'm going to assume the swim's going ahead, and I'm going to assume, based on what Scott's just talked about, that you're able to actually maintain a pace that means you're going to be at least expected to finish within the allowable time. So if we move on to the next slide, Scott's talked about the extent to which pace matters. Now, what Scott was playing with and exploring, you can happily do, and you can look at how your different paces affect the offset. The other thing that you can do, which Scott didn't demonstrate, is you can actually compare 2026 to other years. And so, for example, if you actually did a crossing in one of the previous years that has data in the model, then you can actually look at your finishing time and compare it to how long it took you, like the pace, in order to come up with a set of inputs that match what your condition might have been for that previous year. That can become quite important. If we go to the next slide, one of the aspects that is also important to know, it's more than likely not going to have an effect for this year. We are at this stage seeing some fairly strong southerly winds forecast, which means that almost certainly we're not going to have a year like we did in 2017, where the currents were actually coming down from the north. So one of the things about the Route Optimisation Tool is that it is based on monitoring and measurements and forecasts of the ocean conditions for this year. It isn't universally like that. And so how far south you go, whether you go along the run line or whether you go north, is actually something that varies from year to year quite substantially. Because of that, we actively encourage you to use the tool, as Scott was saying, in the lead up to Saturday, to actually feed in parameters that match what you believe you'll be able to swim on the day. Now, if we go to the next slide, please. So a really important aspect of swimming, and especially swimming such a long distance in the ocean under wave conditions, is that you will tend to fatigue. And the natural course of things is that as you fatigue, you'll start swimming slower. Not only will you start swimming slower, the tendency is that you'll actually take longer breaks. And so it turns out, unfortunately, that actually that's the very worst thing that you could do for completing a Rottnest Channel swim. It turns out that if you want to minimize the time it takes you to actually do a crossing, because the currents are strongest out closest to the island, it's important that your pace out at the island is as close as possible to the pace that you leave the beach. And so actually that means heading off from Cottesloe without necessarily trying to sprint. It's fabulous to see everyone diving into the water and sprinting those first, the first few hundred meters to meet up with the kayak and burning all of that energy. But actually that means that when you're actually at KP 17 and you're drifting towards the north at a meter per second, that's actually when you need to do the sprinting. Just to put it in context for some of us, and potentially including myself, I can do 100 meters in 1:40. It's not the fastest I can go, but it's a pretty okay, comfortable pace. 100 meters in a minute 40 is roughly 1 meter per second. So for the currents that are forecast for Saturday at the moment, it means that essentially you are going to be swimming at a minute 40 pace at the same speed as the current. Out near Rottnest, there are two options. Option one, be far enough south that you can use that current to your advantage. Or option two, eventually you will actually drift north into the rescue corridor and get asked to hop out of the water, which is what happened a couple of years ago. So it is really important that everyone stays out of that rescue corridor. The route optimization tool is set up so it won't actually give you a route that's forecast to go into that corridor. But if you don't actually manage to hold off those currents, then the risk is absolutely there for this year that a fair number of people will actually not be sufficiently far south when they get over towards Rotto and get into those really strong currents heading to the north, that they will actually be pushed past the 18-kilometre red buoy into the rescue corridor, and then it's a real struggle to get back. Because, as we said, out near Rottnest, you need to swim at minute 40 per 100 just to overcome the current. So that's the sort of challenge that we've got. In the event that you're actually a superb athlete, and in the event you're able to set off from Cottesloe at a modest pace of, say, 19 minutes per kilometre, and then as you head out towards Rottnest, if you have the ability to actually negatively split and actually start swimming faster, so that by the time you get to 16, 17, 18 kilometres, you are absolutely sprinting at 15-minute kilometres, that will get you there faster than if you start out at the beach at 15 minute kilometres and do 18-minute kilometres out near Rottnest. That's how the currents are working. So they will actually push you very hard towards the north out near Rottnest. You need to be going as fast as you possibly can at Rottnest. So sprinting to get to Phillip Rock, not sprinting from Cottesloe. Next slide, please. So how fast can you swim? So as I mentioned before, if you've actually swum a Rottnest crossing before, be it as a team or as a solo, you can actually look at your finishing time and you can use the route optimization tool to come up with a reasonable estimate of what your pace was for that swim. You can also use 10-kilometre swims to actually help inform you of what your finishing pace and starting pace were. So often, if you look at the little map there from the open water swimming series, often a race will start between the white buoys. Very often, you won't actually stop for a feed in that first lap. So the first lap, we tend to suggest you don't actually count that. Second lap, where you've done one full complete lap, when the system is working well and you actually get lap by lap splits, that lap, which is most swims is 1.25 kilometers in length, that lap gives you a really good idea of what your starting pace can be. And the key thing here is for it to be one of those swims where the waves weren't too bad. Obviously, through this year, some of the swims were pretty rough, pretty challenging. So actually what we're talking about is if you've done one of the 10K events where it was relatively calm, that sets a really good benchmark for what your ability to swim through still water is. Then, by the time you get to lap 7, that starts to give you a reasonable estimate of what your pace might be once you're getting a bit tired, once you've reached the halfway mark of swimming to Rottnest. And that's the pace that we suggest is a good estimate of your 10-kilometre pace, which feeds into the route optimization app. Just bear in mind, in a pool doing 50 metres or 25-metre pool, you can swim an awful lot faster, or at least I swim faster in the pool than I do in the ocean. Be careful about overestimating your speed based on pool swimming. What really counts is what you're able to maintain in the ocean. The other aspect, which is fairly clear, is that the feed intervals, as Scott said, can have a really significant impact on how long it takes you to get to Rottnest, because if you're stopping every 30 minutes or every 40 minutes, and say you're taking, say, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes for a feed break, that really does impact your overall pace. So the route optimization tool accounts for that. But if you can play around with what that feed break looks like, if it's every 40 minutes instead of every 30 minutes, if it's 30 seconds or a minute instead of 2 or 3 minutes, you will be able to see how much of an effect that has on your ability to finish the race. All right, next slide. One of the things that is actually really scary when currents are strong, like they're forecast to be for Saturday, and let's just be clear, this is actually a GPS plot from one of my crossings. I forget which year it was. I think, oh, there we go, 2021. You can actually see how far we drifted to the north while we stopped for a feed break. That kind of distance is also something that affects how far you will get pushed to the north, especially near Rottnest. So one of the aspects that's really, really important is as you get closer to Rottnest and as you're actually, sort of 16 to 18 kilometers, once you pass Phillip Rock, the currents drop off, the waves drop off, it's much easier. So aim to have your last feed break before you get inside Phillip Rock and then go as fast as possible. That last feed break has to be as short as possible because that's where the currents are strongest. If you're actually sitting in a current that's 1 meter per second and you take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, you're going hundreds of meters north just because the current's pushing you. So be very careful with your feed breaks as you're out near Rottnest. All right, next slide. I think that might be just about it. There we go. What's my plan for Saturday? Well, unfortunately, this year I'm not swimming to Rottnest. It certainly looks like it's going to be a really interesting, challenging swim. But as a suggestion, prepare by looking at what pace you need to hold. How can you minimize the feed break? So what food, how can you package up the food? How can you actually get the team on the boat or on the kayak to be feeding you such that you're getting down to as short a break as possible? The shortest breaks possible need to be out near Rottnest and go south. If you're struggling to navigate, if you're really finding it hard to manage the GPS and get the route optimization tool working for you, there are some simple rules of thumb that actually help to give you a guide on where you are. So if at the start of the swim, the kayak and the boat and you are all headed towards the southern tip of the island, that will generally take you south before the wind and the waves and the current get too strong. If you run along on that southern boundary, the maximum kind of extent of where you can go is actually now marked by a series of yellow buoys on the way into Phillip Rock. So as you're in the strongest currents, if it's all getting a bit tired and everyone's a bit frazzled and the GPS's batteries are flat or whatever, just follow those yellow buoys into Phillip Rock. And there, once you get behind Phillip Rock, then you can stop, have a rest, have a feed, and then keep on going to the finish. The conditions are likely to be challenging, but with the route optimization tool and by actually planning to pace yourself so that out near Rottnest your feed breaks are minimized and your pace is as good as you can possibly manage, it gives you the best chance possible to actually make it all the way across. Back to you, Scott. Anything to add?
No, but I think definitely got some questions which we could go through. So Addy, there's a really good one for you in there, but maybe we'll do that one towards the end. Do you think? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. From Neil. So first question, how can we access the webinar recording? So yeah, after this, we'll send the video over and put it up on the website, Addy. Maybe it would go up, do you think tomorrow or?
Yeah, we'll look to get that up tomorrow on the website. Yep.
There's also, is there still a recording from last year on there?
I would have to check. There's a few older recordings floating around, but we'll make sure we get, we'll get this year's up.
Okay, awesome. Okay, next question from Ian. So assuming we can go ahead this Saturday, RCS expects we keep a speed greater than 18 minutes per K to meet optimal route. Yep. So Ian, that's right. You have to go pretty fast this year for your route to be possible, if you like, for a route to be found. Yep. So definitely encourage everyone to play around. I mean, the other thing I should say, right, so today is Wednesday, and the forecast will get better tomorrow and on Friday. So if you go on today and your pace is not fast enough, go on tomorrow and check again, because if conditions get better, the forecast is more accurate, and it's saying conditions are not as strong as they are now in terms of current speeds. Then you'll be able to find an optimum route at a slower pace. So we definitely emphasize, wait till Friday. That's the best forecast that we'll produce, and that they're the conditions you should use for your final route calculation. Addy or Terry, did you want to add to that at all, or no? Good. Okay, next one is, does the model set a boundary limit at the prescribed boundary, say at the south this year, 2026, so that no matter what's your speed, feeding times, and feeding durations, the algorithm resolves an optimal route? Yeah, so the algorithm will always give you an optimum route that's within the boundaries. So it will never give you an optimum route that goes beyond the southern boundary. What that means is that if you are not fast enough to have a route that sticks within the boundaries, the app will return to you the red text I showed earlier that your swimming speed's not fast enough. So yeah, the route optimization app will always adhere to the boundaries. And what that means is that in years where the currents are strong, you have to swim a bit faster to make it.
It's perhaps worth making the observation that it's not just currents. Waves also have an effect. And it is fairly likely, given the wind forecast, that there's also going to be waves, significant wave activity on Saturday. And it's fair to say that has the likely effect of making it more difficult, more challenging to maintain a certain pace.
Okay, Ian's got another question. So my team of 4 will swim around 20 minutes per K, but when I enter that pace with a feeding interval of 0 seconds, you get the return saying that the input speed is too slow. So how do I get around this when 20 minutes per K is very reasonable? So 20 minutes per K, I agree, is reasonable. That's a fantastic pace to hold. But for this year today, it's still Wednesday, but right now the forecast that we have for Saturday suggests to us that 20 minutes per K is not quick enough to allow us to calculate a route that will get you to Cottesloe before the cutoff time. So I'd say, Ian, definitely jump back on tomorrow and especially on Friday and have another look. But at the moment, 20 minutes per K is not quick enough. But our current forecast will improve over the next 2 days in terms of its accuracy.
And it's fair to say in the sort of the 3 days leading up to the event, we've been working on this tool for since what, 2018, 2019, we've been using it and developing it. And the current forecasts definitely changed by enough that 20-minute K could well actually be sufficient on Saturday. It isn't this far out. It is quite sensitive to those currents. And you'll get that if you play around with different years, you'll be able to see how much of a difference it can make depending on the current speed. So just because today it's saying that you wouldn't make it at 20-minute Ks doesn't mean that you should pull out now. Absolutely wait and see what happens to the currents, because maybe even a 10% drop of the currents is enough that you would make it. So that, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a fairly long, fairly tough swim, but by golly, the beer at the end is going to taste good.
Yeah, it's quite sort of sensitive to currents, like Terry says, because also our forecast at the moment, in the model, is for the currents to get stronger through the day. So you sort of get like this non-linear effect there, right? So if you're going a bit slower, you're going to take longer, but you're going to take even longer because the currents are going to get stronger before you finish. You sort of get this sort of extra impact on your swimming time.
One of the things that might be worth doing for that example case of 20-minute Ks is to have a look at what happens if you start at 19 and finish at 21-minute Ks. What happens if you actually start at 21-minute Ks and by 10 Ks you've actually dropped it to 19-minute Ks, and you may well find that a small negative split across that swim is enough to actually get you to finish on an average of 20-minute Ks.
Yeah, you can definitely do things like that. So just jumping onto the chat quick, there's a few more, then we'll come back to the I think the one for you, Addy, is a cracking question.
Oh yeah.
So is the tool available for the port to pub? No comments yet. We'll see. But thanks, Jen, for the question. Then the next question from Ian is yes, there is last year's recording on the website. Excellent. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for letting us know. That's good. So you can go ahead and watch that. And like Addy said, we'll get this one up ASAP. So Catherine's asking, do you have any QRGs on how to upload the file to a SIMRAD or where to find it, please? So Catherine, no, we don't. But maybe send an email and I'll see if I can get some advice for you. So if you send an email to that coral@UWA email address at the bottom of the web app page, and we can see if we can help you.
Google's saying that there's a fishing website that's got instructions, SIMRAD GPX importing instructions on fishon.io.
Want to drop it on the chat, Terry?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
Because obviously people can't fish anymore because it's been banned. So,
Yep. Then Rodney says, I've asked this question to a SIMRAD dealer, and I think you need to use a micro SD and upload that way. So yeah, Catherine, a bit more. You've probably read that before me. You've already given that a heart, I think, maybe. Yep, perfect. Should have just looked at that. Good. So then Terry's dropped in the link as well. Okay, so we'll jump back to the Q&A. All right, so a couple more have come in. So I'll just do these ones. So Min Gao's asked, during swimming, which direction should I go? Follow the blue route, or should I head south, then make the sum vector a swimming direction and current direction to follow the blue route? So Min, simple answer, calculate your optimum route, upload the GPX file, and then follow those GPX marker points. That's the direction.
But it does mean if your GPX course is that way, the kayaker and the swimmer will wind up having to actually swim at an angle to it, because even from the start, there is a little bit of current. So you will actually wind up crabbing a little bit the whole way.
Yeah. So what helps, Min, either the skipper or sometimes even the paddler might have a handheld GPS, and you really need to be looking at that to know what direction you're going in. Because like Terry said, the kayak is heading right. The front of the kayak is probably going to be pointing towards the south of Rottnest Island, even though you're traveling not towards the south of Rottnest Island. So try and rely on your skipper to make sure you're traveling on the optimum route, or rely on somebody, either your kayaker or somebody on the boat that has a GPS that can track how you're moving. Hopefully that helps.
Just advice. We've found over many years that the system that seems to work best is that the GPX is actually on the boat, and the people on the boat call out guidance to the kayaker to aim a bit further south. Aim for the sand dune on Rottnest, aim for the tip of the island, aim 10 degrees south of the island, and then the kayaker's got something to aim for. While you're still on your way across, aim for the boat, the big white stink boat with the Australia, boxing kangaroo flag. You can give directions from the boat to the kayaker, and then the boat doesn't have to actually sit right next to the kayaker the whole time. It can go around other swimmers and other boats as you overtake them.
Excellent. So Alberto asked, how often is the tool updated between now and Friday? So it will be updated each day. So I think about 9 a.m. is when we will have we can guarantee that we'll have the new forecast currents into the back end of the optimization tool. So there'll be an update tomorrow around 9 a.m. and then an update again on Friday around 9 a.m. Thanks, Ian. And then Kate asks, when you download the .gpx file, will it include the northern and southern exclusion zones and rescue zone, or do you have to download and load those up separately? So the GPX file will include the marker buoys that delineate the northern boundary. It will also include the GPS locations of the marker buoys that tell you where the southern boundary is. And it also will include the GPS locations of the rumline marker buoys. So all of those will be in there. So you shouldn't have to load other buoy locations. You should get everything you need from the GPX file.
Brett's question. So currents picking up closer to Rottnest. Is it possible to enter shorter, less frequent feed breaks past the 10K mark in the same way you could change your pace? The simplest way, I reckon, to do that, no, the app as it presently stands doesn't let you do that, but you can effectively set the feed breaks to 0 as though you were a team swim, and then just adjust the pacing, the pacing at the start and the pacing at 10 kilometers. And that you can factor in the feed breaks into that. So it is possible to actually effectively get it to do what you're trying to do. And it's an excellent idea of shortening up the feed breaks as you head to past 10K. Just to explain the way the Route Optimisation Tool works, it takes your pace at the start, your pace at the end, and then it draws a straight line through, and it will estimate your pace at the end based on the first 2 points. So if you say 18-minute Ks at the start, 20-minute Ks in the middle, then it will assume 22-minute Ks at the end. So you can adjust that based around the tipping point, which is the 10-kilometer pace.
Yeah, almost does that, Terry. But that's approximately what it does. It actually does it based on how far you feel like you've swum. But for simplicity, that's kind of close enough. Yeah. So how can we access the webinar recording? That'll be on I think it'll be on the same page on the Rottnest Channel Swim site as you came through as you go through to access the web optimization tool, the Route Optimisation Tool. So it'll be on that same page. I think that's right, Addy. Yeah. Yeah.
Scott, noticing the time and anticipating a fair number of people might need to drop off the call soon, what are the chances we could actually address Neil's question and pass that one on to Addy for him to have a go at? Because I'm very keen to hear the answer.
Yeah, so we're at that question now anyway. So it's a cracker of a question. So we let people read that because they can read that. I don't know, Addy, if you had a chance to read, probably.
Yeah, and thanks, Neil, for your question. Yeah, we certainly agree it's a fantastic tool, and yeah, obviously feel it's been a really great partnership with UWA and Aurora Offshore Engineering to deliver this. I guess your two questions there. How can the committee get more people to use the optimizer? So I think there's pretty high take up at the moment. I understand from the conversations we've had that increasingly over the last few years, more and more people are heading south, and you see less support boats going down the run line. So that's a pretty good indication that people are utilising the tool, and it's something that, yeah, we're very proud to share. I think that the strong attendance on the webinar today, which we promoted actively across our platforms, shows there's an appetite from the swim community, which is great. So again, we'll keep promoting it and encouraging people to do so. I guess the second part of that question was around consideration of using the model as an unofficial cutoff. So yeah, again, we've got over the next few days, we'll continue to monitor the forecast as it evolves and develops. And there's a number of things that we'll weigh up as part of that, and through our weather protocols and our weather matrix. So yeah, there's certainly a number of things where we'll use all the relevant tools at our disposal, and to make a fully informed and evidence-based decision again by 4 a.m. on Saturday morning.
I mean, Addy, just as a follow-up, just a question from me, I guess. Is it at all a possibility that on race day just part of the swimming fleet will be allowed to swim? Those in the earlier waves, or maybe you can't answer that yet. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think it's premature to speculate on that. I think we've just got to. So I guess it's two parts to that. We've got to stay the course. It would be premature at this stage to make any decision, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of, as you can imagine, a lot of discussion and consideration. We have obviously a small staff team, but we've got a race advisory committee who have all got a wealth of experience around the event. We've got our volunteer board as well. Again, a lot of experience and a diverse skill set that they bring, and we're engaging not only with the bureau but also with emergency services and other key stakeholders. So it's a very, it'll be a very considered decision. Again, there are parameters and protocols that we follow, but we'll be consulting all of the subject matter experts and using the tools at the disposal, and considering a wide variety of scenarios as we get closer to that sort of cutoff point on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I think, Scott, there's a couple of questions up the top there from Tom and Alberto. I don't know if you've seen those ones.
Tom Fry, yep. So given the current forecast and your suggestion that 20-minute per K isn't fast enough, are you advising, or more importantly, warning swimmers who cannot swim this pace or slower to pull out of the race for safety reasons? So as Addy said, well, we're not suggesting that. What we're suggesting at the moment is to come back on Thursday and Friday when the forecast will be more accurate. and try again at this stage. That's what we suggest, Tom. And then Alberto, I've tried 19 minutes per K all along and cannot get a result. And I've done 21 minutes per K at the start, 19 at the end, and it has given a result. How is this possible? So Alberto, that goes to sort of what Terry was talking a bit about. It's pretty non-linear. So it's much better for you to be racing, like I think you put it, Terry, racing towards the finish line than it is to be racing from the start line. The currents are at their strongest near Rottnest. So if you're swimming faster near Rottnest, then it's going to be better for you, essentially. And that's just the non-linear aspect of this route optimization calculation.
Mm. So it's a very similar question or comment by Todd Keating, saying, if you input 17 minutes at the start, 18.5 minutes at 10K, compared to 18.5 minutes, 18.5 minutes, it's very different outcome. So absolutely correct, because what it's implying is that you're slowing down towards Rottnest, towards Phillip Island, where the currents are the strongest, and that's what's whacking it, because you're actually sitting there fighting the current, making very little forward progress towards Phillip Rock.
Yeah, so question about the engine. Froth at this stuff. Definitely we froth at this stuff. Yeah, is there any chance you can do it for port to bum? Yeah, I think we'd love to, but there's a few, we more comments on that soon, I guess. Hopefully.
One thing that we can say is that the the Rottnest Channel Swim app will still be here and still be live, even though the course is slightly different. The Rottnest Channel Swim app will still be there. So if you are clever enough to figure out how to take the results from a similar year for the Rotto Channel Swim and adapt your route for port to pub, go for it. Nothing's stopping you.
Yeah.
Whip around sounds like a fabulous idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I think I missed any new ones. Yeah, some good questions. A lot of people this year. It's quite good. I think that might be all of them.
And I think as Scott's touched on, if you think of something the minute we jump off this webinar, or you were feeling a bit too shy to post in the Q&A, the option to reach out, as Scott said earlier, there's the email address on the site. So please encourage people to reach out to the experts that we're really fortunate to have on board with this.
Perhaps that's an opportunity then just to say, Addy, tough gig first year, and as far as we can tell, you're doing an absolutely fabulous job. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this swim, and good luck in the lead up to Saturday.
Appreciate it, and thanks to the two of you and Avita, and a big thanks to everyone for jumping on online tonight, and we'll, as I said, we'll be in touch with an update by the end of tomorrow.
Now, just before we go, Cameron's just asked a very, very important question, which I think is worth us tabling just before we go. That is, do you feel that the optimization tool will cluster a lot of swimmers, boats, kayaks into one area and make it more of a safety issue in poorer weather? I think that's a fair proposition. One of the things that this tool does is impose a hard boundary of 1.5 kilometers southern deviation from the route, and that is a rule that's been introduced into the Rottnest Channel swimming rules in order to actually mean that the fleet is not spread out too far for rescues to happen within was it 8 minutes response time or whatever the performance criteria is. However, this year it will probably mean there is a fair congestion of people lined up along that southern boundary. So given that it might be quite rough, given that boats and swimmers don't mix together and boats and swimmers are much harder to see when it's rough. From my personal perspective, having nearly been hit by boats a few times, I would encourage skippers on this call to make sure that you just keep the boats a bit apart. That is a really good idea and a great question.
And I guess, I mean, sort of further to that, I mean, there is obviously the risk of congestion, but also conversely, the tool exists because there's a risk without it that people will be drifting further and further north and either be pushed into the safety corridor, emergency corridor, or will be find themselves in a position where they can't recover and actually make it through Phillip Rock. So we recognise that that is a consideration, but we still feel as though the tool is a significant net positive because it maximises the opportunity for people to complete the swim. And there was one comment there around the positioning. It is the swimmer should be to the side of the boat. We do have rules around, I guess, there's a practical kind of safety aspect with coming up behind a boat, but also in terms of not drafting behind the boat or the paddler or other swimmers. That obviously forms part of the event rules. So within 50 metres to the side of your support craft, please. Excellent. I think we've got all the questions there by the looks of it. Scott, Terry, all good?
Yep, all good from me.
Yep.
Yeah, and just to echo Terry's comments, thanks, Addy. Thanks for the chance to talk and use it again this year. Yeah, good fun from our side, and hopefully it's great day on Saturday.
Yep.
Indeed.
Excellent. Thanks,
all
everyone.
Right. And everyone that joined in the call, thanks very much for your questions and all the best of luck for Saturday.
All right. Bye.
All right. Cheers, everyone.